To support my boyfriend's startup, I secretly resell voodoo dolls on a second-hand platform. One day, I received a very strange message. While others sell voodoo dolls for love or business success, this buyer asked me, "If I break a taboo, how long will it take for the voodoo doll to turn against me and kill me?" I told him the time frame, and soon after, he placed an order. That night, my boyfriend gave me a doll as a gift. I was startled. Could a voodoo doll really take a life? One anonymous buyer's message sent shivers down my spine. Will it kill? After I replied, he quickly sent another message. Frowning at it, I noticed that usually, people who buy voodoo dolls from me are interested in attracting love, wealth, or health. This was the first time someone mentioned wanting to take a life. Was he considering suicide but afraid to do it himself, hoping the doll would do it for him? Or did he intend to use it to harm someone else? I didn't respond right away and decided to check his profile. It was empty except for a profile picture. When I zoomed in, I was taken aback. It was a Ranchu goldfish missing a part of its fin, exactly like the one in my own fish tank. "Hey! Are you still there? I didn't explain myself well earlier. It's not about dying, it's more like..." His message cut off abruptly, and after a moment, another one came through. "Like trapping the soul or something, leaving the body alive. Like a living dead person, right? Aw, that's what I meant!" My heart sank. What kind of hatred drove someone to wish for such a thing? "You really are a pro. You understand right away. No wonder everyone says your dolls are very effective." Everyone? I thought, puzzled. Years ago, my mother and I were in this business in Thailand, and our dolls had some fame. But after returning home, I had stopped for a long time. I only resumed recently for Jason, and I had only a handful of customers in the past 6 months. Who was this? "Everyone!" Suppressing my confusion, I replied. "My dolls are indeed effective. I have those kinds too, but they're not cheap." My phone showed he was typing. After a while, he sent, "If someone gets trapped, is there a chance to succeed within 28 days? 28 days? My heart raced. How could he know such a specific time frame? I glanced at the calendar, marked with a red heart, our engagement date with Jason. Today was the 3rd, precisely 28 days away. I was uneasy. Could the person on the other end be Jason? Just the thought made me break into a cold sweat. I calmed myself. Even if I couldn't connect voodoo dolls to Jason, I still felt anxious. We had been together for 3 years, and he had always seemed pure and kind. How could he suddenly want to buy a voodoo doll to turn someone into a living dead? Was he in trouble, being coerced? Or was everything just a coincidence, and the buyer wasn't Jason at all? Seeing that I hadn't replied, he sent the message again. After some thought, I responded. It depends on the person. Someone fortunate might not notice anything for 3 to 5 years. Someone less lucky could go insane in a week, and in severe cases, they might lose their soul and fall into a deep coma immediately. He took a long time to type back. How do you judge someone's luck? Just show me a recent photo of the user. I replied. This time, I waited a long time without a response. Looking at the empty chat box, I chuckled at my own paranoia, suspecting Jason. The person on the other end was likely just a curious online user, since the products I sell tend to attract questions. Just as I shrugged it off, I received another message from that person. Here's the user, take a look. Attached was a video. The moment I opened it, a chill shot down my spine. It showed me cleaning the living room earlier that day. My house had a camera? Panic surged through me, but I remained still. From this angle, I was still within the camera's view. What do you think of her luck? I didn't reply immediately, feigning indifference as I moved to the bedroom. There shouldn't be a camera here, otherwise, Jason wouldn't have waited until I went to the living room to record. Hey, still there? Luck seems average. How long would it take? Through his messages, I could sense Jason's urgency. Why was he acting this way? We were about to get engaged. Did he really want to turn me into a soulless idiot? And with a camera in our home? Did he have some peculiar fascination? I initially planned to confront him directly but was concerned it might scare him off. What if he found another way to mess with me? Suppressing my myriad doubts, I replied. If the strongest doll traps someone, it would take about 10 days. In the next moment, I received a notification that 100,000 yuan had been deposited into my account. I had priced the dolls at up to 50,000 yuan each on the platform, and Jason had surprisingly ordered 2. Each doll was unique, so I didn't actually have 2. I realized the extra payment was probably a fee for the master. Should I have any further questions, I might need to consult him. Was Jason really that wealthy? Hadn't he mentioned that his company was struggling to pay employees for the last 6 months? Otherwise, I wouldn't have returned to this business. Jason! What on earth are you up to? All right, I won't hold back. Just send me the delivery address, and I'll ship it out ASAP. He quickly sent me an address located in a wealthy villa district in the city. This place was far beyond Jason's means. Not that I looked down on him, but I knew his family well. His mother was a laid-off worker, and they lived in a resettlement house. He had worked hard for years to save the initial 200,000 yuan for his startup. How could someone from such a background be connected to a top-tier mansion? At that moment, I really felt like I couldn't understand him at all. After confirming the address, I left my house and headed straight to the underground garage. To store my dolls conveniently, I had specifically rented the storage unit with the most negative energy in the whole complex. When I opened the door, there were 3 dolls and a pile of snacks right in front of me. I picked up the oldest one, gently coaxing it, and its eyes twinkled. I tapped its forehead lightly and placed it into a small ceramic box, wrapping the box carefully afterward. Once I finished with the doll, I gave myself a complete makeover and then headed to the address Jason had provided. I was familiar with the wealthy district since most of my primary clients lived there. They bought my dolls, and if anything went wrong, I would personally handle the after-sales services. To avoid being recognized, I disguised myself as a man. After placing the box at the community gate, I hid in the bushes across the street and left a message for Jason. About half an hour later, someone finally came out of the community to take the box. I had imagined the person retrieving it might be a beautiful young woman or a married lady, but it turned out to be an old woman dressed like a caretaker. When she turned, I recognized her face. It was Jason's mother. Having been with Jason for 3 years, I had interacted with his mother many times. While we weren't particularly close, I would definitely recognize her. What was she doing here? I quickly pulled out my phone and snapped a picture of her, sending it to a former customer of mine who lived nearby. Linda, do you recognize this person? Linda owned a club in the city and had a group of handsome men and beautiful women working for her. Her business had been doing well until earlier this year when a larger club opened across the street, siphoning away much of her clientele. After trying various methods to revive her business without success, she had bought a doll from me, and soon after, her business picked up again. Since then, she had placed her trust in my abilities, calling me Master! It didn't take long for Linda to reply. Master, I've seen this person before. She's the caretaker for my neighbor. Why do you ask? I told her straightforwardly. She just bought a doll from me. Linda's surprise made my heart race, and I waited at the community gate for a while, expecting to see Jason, but he never showed up. After returning home, I changed my outfit and went back inside. To my surprise, Jason was already home. Hey, where have you been? He asked. I shook the bag in my hand, saying, I bought your favorite offal. Jason came over, wrapped his arm around my waist, and took the bag, burying his face in my neck affectionately. You're the best, babe. I smiled lightly, enjoying his affection, and this atmosphere lingered until after dinner when we got intimate. Jason, grinning, pulled a box from under the bed. Honey, I noticed you've really been into dolls lately, so I ordered you a customized one online. Let's see if you like it. Of course, I liked it. It was one I had chosen myself. Jason couldn't wait to open the box and pulled out the doll, but without letting me take a good look, he shoved it into the bed covers and bolted away from the bed as if escaping. I had already figured out that he was planning to harm me, but I was shocked to discover that he understood the taboos surrounding the dolls. Anyone who raises dolls knows you must never bring them into the couple's bedroom, especially after intimacy. The mingling of male and female energies can disrupt a person's mentality, and with beings like dolls, who possess a nascent consciousness, they easily attune to their owners, leading to negative thoughts. And Jason, this jerk, not only brought the doll into the room but stuffed it right into the bed. I thought perhaps he simply didn't understand the rules, but then who taught him how to use it? "Honey, where are you going?" I asked, pretending to get up from the bed. Seeing this, Jason immediately returned and pinned me back down. "Don't get up, babe. I still have some things to finish at the company. I'll be back soon." He comforted me with a pat on the head but leaned far back, as if there was a flood on the bed. "Come lay with me for a while," I said playfully, trying to pull him closer. He clearly panicked at my words, and I felt triumphant, thinking, "You wanted to harm me? I'll scare you into a heart attack." Just as I was about to forcibly drag him over, Jason's phone suddenly rang. I hesitated for a moment, and he swiftly wriggled out of my grasp. "Stop it, Emily! It's a big client!" Jason waved his phone in front of me, as if to keep me from getting too clingy. Before I could even see the screen, he pulled it away, and while talking on the phone, he hurriedly left the house. I coldly opened the doll's back and found a square piece of black cloth with my birth date written on it. I placed it in the ashtray and burned it, also tossing in the cloth that had Jason's birth date on it. Finally, Jason returned the next evening. As soon as he walked in, he rushed over to me, his eyes scanning me up and down. I pretended to be weak and started coughing violently. "Oh no, Emily, what's wrong?" he exclaimed. "I don't know. I had nightmares all night and woke up feeling anxious this morning, dizzy, and coughing." "Really?" Although Jason's face showed concern, I could still catch a flash of relief in his eyes. "Yes, but why do I feel like you don't look so good either?" I asked. Jason casually rubbed his face. "It's just because business has been tough lately, I'm worried. But Emily, don't stress about this. I'll endure any hardships for our future." Wow, Jason, I really underestimated you. You're quite the actor. I thought to myself, though I maintained a pained expression on my face. Don't tire yourself out too much, honey. I really can't bear it. Maybe I should go find a job outside. Absolutely not. You're too innocent. Those people outside are bad news. I'm afraid you'd get hurt. Don't worry, your husband can support you. Since last year, Jason had kept me from interacting with anyone else. Had he been plotting to turn me into a living dead since then? Feigning gratitude, I cuddled with Jason for a bit. That evening, he made dinner for me, claiming my health was a concern. While setting the table, he placed an extra set of bowls and chopsticks beside mine. "Today's dishes are all stews, it's too hot. I'm afraid it'll burn you, so I'll cool it down first." He smiled as he handed me a bowl full of hot food. I reached to take it, but at that moment, Jason suddenly let go, and the bowl crashed to the floor, shattering into pieces. "Oh no, Emily, why did you drop the bowl?" Jason's voice rose suddenly. Though he was speaking to me, his gaze shifted toward the bedroom. I understood he was directing his words toward the doll. This was the second significant taboo in raising dolls. You must serve them food properly, especially before you eat. That bowl of food Jason just dropped was meant for the doll, and he used my hand to wreck it. If I were just an ordinary person, I would have likely angered the doll by now. "Jason, I didn't mean to. Don't say it was an accident." Jason's sweet demeanor turned cold in an instant. "Are you mad at me for not coming home last night? Emily, you're so inconsiderate. I'm leaving, you can eat alone." "Jason." I made a pitiful face, looking confused, but he turned and fled, moving faster than a rabbit. He achieved his goal. not wanting to linger even for a minute. The door slammed shut behind him, and even after he left, I cried at the dining table for quite a while, especially staring at the black and white little penguin on the coffee table, which I guessed was the camera Jason had set up. I put on an especially dramatic performance, even fainting for a moment during my sobbing. It wasn't until late at night that I woke up feeling miserable and groggily returned to my room. As soon as I entered the bedroom, I picked up my phone. I planned to call Jason to see where he was, but to my surprise, he had already sent me a message, and it was directed to the master who sold him the doll. "Master, you're truly amazing. I'm very satisfied with the results, but I have a question."
What is it?
I replied. "I want to know, after turning someone into a living dead person, will they still have their previous memories?" Why was he asking this? If someone is already a living dead, what difference does it make whether they have memories? After a long pause, Jason replied, "If she later becomes normal again, will she remember her past?" He still wanted me to become normal? What was he doing with all this? I decided to respond honestly. Once someone becomes a living dead person, even if they recover, they may lose most of their memories. But their personality, preferences, and habits will usually remain the same. Really? That's great! Thank you, Master. After that, Jason went offline completely. I was more confused than ever about what he was planning. To uncover the truth, I decided to keep playing along. I thought I wouldn't sleep well with my mind racing, but for some reason, tonight, I felt unusually tired. I put my phone down and soon fell asleep. I don't know how long I slept, but suddenly, I heard a voice calling me.
Wake up, baby! Mom!
I jolted awake and found that the doll I had been lying with had crawled up to my ear while I was asleep. Just as I reached to pull it back to my chest, I heard rustling sounds at the bedroom door. In the dim light, two shadowy figures entered the room. I quickly maintained my sleeping posture and opened my eyes just a crack. As they got closer, the moonlight illuminated their faces. I recognized one as Jason and, shockingly, the other was Linda, the last person I ever expected to see.
Emily?
Jason crouched beside me, gently shaking me a couple of times. When I didn't respond, he checked for breath under my nose.
She's passed out!
Linda then knelt down beside me, observing my face carefully. I silently praised my cautiousness, always disguising my appearance when interacting with buyers, so no one knew my true identity. "This girl is indeed pretty. Sarah Lynn will like her," Linda said. "Of course, I found her according to Sarah Lynn's wishes. Good kid, you've worked hard. If this works out, I'll arrange a wedding for you and Sarah Lynn right away. Auntie, I'm willing to do anything as long as I can be with Sarah Lynn," Jason replied excitedly. "Don't worry, Auntie will take good care of you." As they spoke, they stood up. I secretly opened my eyes wider and saw Linda pulling a small knife from her bag. My heart raced. Were they there to finish me off? Terrified, I mentally recited a spell to awaken the dolls in the room. But the next second, Linda plunged the knife into her own middle finger, blood gushing forth.
Quick, lift her shirt!
Warm, slippery sensations started spreading across my chest. What were they doing? I couldn't move, so I discreetly shifted my eyes to the living room mirror. The mirror reflected me, Linda, and Jason. Linda wrote those words clumsily with her bleeding hand, then pulled out a doll from her bag, the very one I had sold to her. In a flash, I realized what she was planning. After resuming my old business, Linda was my first customer. Initially, she had doubts about my dolls but eventually placed an order. The first transaction involved reviving a small business she owned. Once she saw I had real skills, she revealed her true purpose, a desperate measure to save her daughter, Sarah Lynn, who was seriously ill. Linda bought the doll specifically for her. I understood Linda's desperation. When medicine fails, many turn to the mystical. This may have been her last hope. After buying the doll, I patiently explained many things about these dolls from Thailand to her. About a month later, Linda reached out to me again, and her attitude had completely changed. She was overly respectful, saying her daughter was much better and that I was amazing, Master. She even promoted my services within her wealthy circle and found me 2 new buyers, asking to meet me in person. At the time, Jason was struggling to pay his employees, and without thinking too much, I agreed, dressing up to avoid complications. With Linda's introduction, I successfully sold 2 dolls. After sending off the buyers, Linda stopped me and led me to her garden, pointing to a girl in the distance. That's my daughter, Sarah Lynn. She was an extremely thin and pale girl. Linda said,
Master, the doll has helped Sarah Lynn a lot. How long until she's fully healed?
Voodoo dolls can indeed help their owners bear some burdens. If the burdens are light, they will gradually improve. But seeing Sarah Lynn engulfed in dark, heavy energy, I couldn't mislead Linda and give her false hope.
She's not going to make it. The burdens are too heavy.
Master, after you told me about the situation in Thailand, I consulted some specialists. They said it is possible to save her in her condition. I turned to look at her, my heart sinking.
Your daughter has someone's life tied to her, doesn't she?
Linda stared at me in shock, her lips trembling. Just when I thought she would abandon the idea, she suddenly knelt before me, tears streaming down her face. Master, the people in Thailand said that with the doll you sold me, you can definitely save my daughter. She's my only daughter, please help me. Seeing her desperation, I felt pity rise within me. After contemplating, I slowly said,
Life is predestined. Your daughter has already sown the seeds of fate. Trying to force a change might not be easy unless someone can swap lives with her. But I won't do that. The consequences are too great. You should look for another voodoo practitioner. So, this kind of life exchange really exists?
Linda asked eagerly, hope glinting in her eyes. I nodded slightly. Linda wiped her face, and excitement sparkled in her tear-filled eyes. Master, it's okay if you don't do it. Just say this is real. I didn't say much more, knowing she had probably found someone already. Right now, she was just seeking confirmation. All she wanted was an answer. Afterward, Linda contacted me several times, mostly discussing her daughter's condition, but she never mentioned the voodoo practitioner she found. I didn't pry further. I had no idea that the person Linda sought to swap lives for her daughter was actually me. It was a coincidence neither of us saw coming. With my plan in mind, I felt no fear. I didn't care about Linda or Jason, the only one I was wary of was the voodoo practitioner backing them. Jason might not see the problem, but as a voodoo master, that person would surely know something was off after looking at my birth chart. At that moment, the details of my birth chart that Linda wrote on my chest were already dry. She took the ancient-looking knife and found a strand of hair from the top of my head, carefully cutting it off and placing it in her bag. Jason then went into the bedroom and retrieved the doll from under the covers. Linda took the doll from him, pulled out a long strand of hair from the side of her bag, and stuffed it into the doll's belly. If I was right, that strand of hair was taken from Sarah Lynn's crown point. The hair that Linda took from me would soon find its way into Sarah Lynn's voodoo doll. This was a method in voodoo for exchanging lives using dolls. Next, they planned for me to share everything with Linda's daughter for 21 days. On the night of the 21st day, during the witching hour, Sarah Lynn would exchange souls with me under the spell's framework. From then on, I would bear her burdens, and she could live healthily in my body. This was the life exchange ritual, also known as life substitution. The original owner's burdens remained, they just needed someone to replace them. When Jason bought the doll, he asked vague questions, so he probably wasn't clear on the specifics of the process. After they finished their tasks, Linda and Jason lifted me up, likely to prevent anyone from seeing me on the way out. Before leaving, Jason covered my entire face with a hat, mask, and sunglasses. I kept my body limp, letting them handle me. When I finally encountered light again, I found myself at Linda's home. I slowly opened my eyes to find the room empty. From the room's decor, it appeared to be a guest room, with tree canopies and a newly installed iron fence visible outside the window. I listened closely to ensure there was no sound outside, then tiptoed to the door, gently tugging the handle twice. It wouldn't budge, it was locked. I lay back down on the bed, not feeling rushed. They would definitely bring Sarah Lynn to me today. Sure enough, I heard noises outside in the evening. I continued to lie in bed, pretending to be unconscious. Before long, the door opened. Linda walked in, supporting a pale-faced girl.
Sarah Lynn, don't worry about anything else. Just lay next to her and sleep. Mom, she's not moving. Is she dead?
Sarah Lynn asked anxiously.
Don't worry, the doll has taken her soul. We have to fight evil with evil. But Mom!
The thought of this woman having slept with Jason made Sarah Lynn feel nauseous. Sarah Lynn, this body will be yours from now on. If Jason has been with her, it means he's been with you too.
But why? She's just a poor girl who gets to switch bodies with me and becomes a rich heiress.
My silly girl, this body only has a few days left. Don't worry, I've got everything planned. Once this works out, I'll transfer all the assets that belong to you.
Assets!
I lay there, listening intently. Initially, I planned to deal with Sarah Lynn tonight and draw out the voodoo practitioner behind her. But now, I wanted to change my plan. Taking care of Sarah Lynn wouldn't be difficult, and if I could also get her family's wealth, that would be even better. After all, Linda, despite being a woman, was one of the wealthiest people in the city. With her mother's persuasion, Sarah Lynn finally lay down next to me, glancing at me with a conflicted expression. Mom, what if she wakes up at midnight? Don't worry, I've consulted someone. This girl has always had a weak soul, and with the doll on her, there's no chance she'll wake up. Linda reassured Sarah Lynn before leaving. Once the door closed, it was just me and Sarah Lynn in the room. Not long after, I felt the bed shift beside me as Sarah Lynn leaned over.
Humph. They say my burdens are heavy, and I've ended up like this. It's all karma. But you girls are clearly low class. How dare you act so brazenly in front of me, a wealthy heiress?
I sneered inwardly.
Cough, cough, cough.
Before she could finish speaking, she broke into a fit of coughing, her weakness making her even more irritable. She slapped me across the face.
You filthy wretch. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. How dare you seduce Jason and sleep with him? Shameless! You bitches should die!
Sarah Lynn grew more agitated, slapping me repeatedly, yet it seemed that wasn't enough to satisfy her.
I hate it most when people touch my things. All those other girls who got punished before died because they messed with me, and you get to swap souls after sleeping with my man? That's way too lenient for you.
Sarah Lynn coughed, her eyes filled with rage and resentment. After a violent coughing fit, she suddenly burst into a laugh.
How about playing a game with me? I haven't played in a while, and I've missed it.
With that, she grabbed my hand, and I felt her fingernail dig into my finger. The sharp object pressed deeper, but I didn't flinch.
Why isn't she bleeding?
Sarah Lynn's puzzled voice rang out. To test it, she jabbed a long needle into my finger, but the result was the same.
Could she already be dead?
She muttered to herself.
I'm not dead.
I suddenly spoke up, my clear voice startling Sarah Lynn so much that she almost fell off the bed.
You all want my body, why play these games? You'd better think about how it'll feel later on. You know I want your body? You've been awake the whole time?
Panic flickered across Sarah Lynn's face, but when she saw I was unharmed, her expression turned arrogant again.
Humph. So what if you know? A nobody like you can only accept what's coming. Being noticed by someone like me is an honor. After all, your body can only suffer in poverty, mine will enjoy endless wealth and luxury.
I maintained my smile. Who says it won't work? I can't wait, so why don't we switch right now?
Huh? What did you say?
Her voice sounded surprised. I smiled and looked behind her.
Here she comes! Who?
Sarah Lynn turned to see what I was looking at, only to come face to face with the voodoo doll I had. The doll was covered in pinholes, oozing black blood that emitted a chilling glow.
Aw!
Sarah Lynn screamed in fright. But before the sound could fully escape her lips, the doll shot toward her mouth like an arrow and stabbed itself inside. As the doll entered, Sarah Lynn collapsed beside me, her throat bulging. Tears and snot streamed down her face as she struggled to turn her head to look at me, pleading for help. I only smiled and leaned down, pressing my forehead against hers. Suddenly, a loud thunderclap echoed outside, followed by a torrential downpour. The light inside flickered with the flashes of lightning and thunder but quickly settled back to normal. At that moment, the bulge in Sarah Lynn's neck disappeared, and she sat up, grinning at me. I thrashed my chained limbs wildly, my mouth gaping wide, yet I couldn't utter a single sound. Yes, I had become Sarah Lynn, and Sarah Lynn had become me. As I emerged from the room, I saw Grace and Jason sitting on the sofa watching TV. Upon seeing me, they quickly stood up.
Sarah Lynn, come and sit down.
Jason even scurried towards me, bowing like a eunuch in an ancient court before the Empress Dowager.
Did that relieve your anger?
I shook my head.
My body is so weak. How could that relieve any anger?
I thought to myself.
I figured you'd get bored of hitting someone after a couple of slaps. Look what I got you.
Jason looked at his mother, who proudly produced a box from her pocket. Inside was a high-voltage stun gun.
This stuns without leaving a scar, and it's satisfying.
Grace said with a smug smile.
What a vicious woman!
I cursed inwardly, but had to force a smile.
Oh, that's great!
I said sincerely, taking the stun gun, but then adopted a troubled look.
Ugh. I'm a little tired today, Jason.
Why don't you use it on her for me?
Me? I can't!
Jason's eyes darted around, and he shook his head repeatedly. Having been with Jason for 3 years, I may have misjudged his character, but I understood his personality perfectly. His refusal to shock me wasn't because he still cared for me, but because he was afraid. How I had mistaken his cowardice for kindness.
What do you mean you can't? Are you still hung up on her? The woman you'll be spending your life with from now on is me. Or do you regret it and want to rekindle things with that poor girl?
Seeing my cold expression, Grace tugged on Jason's arm discreetly. What relationship could I possibly have with her? My wife can only be you. Since my wife wants me to, I'll do it. Jason's face hardened with determination. That night, my cries lasted for half the night. Though my body kept signaling something to Jason, he couldn't understand. And to impress Sarah Lynn, he inflicted even more pain, aiming the shocks at my softest flesh. Electrocution and needles, I sweated from the pain, yet couldn't make a sound. Jason only stopped when I lost consciousness. Over the next few days, with my encouragement, Jason eagerly tortured me in various ways. Electrocution and needles took turns, gradually revealing Jason's perverted side. Without my prompting, he even improvised. He even bought a set of dog leashes and walked me around the villa. Whenever I didn't cooperate, I was electrocuted or poked with needles. Under such torment, my eyes became dull and my spirit weakened. I couldn't even control my bowels anymore. Seeing me like this, Jason and Linda were thrilled, believing that my soul had been completely taken over by the doll and that Sarah Lynn's soul swap would go even more smoothly. Moreover, because my soul had completely disappeared, Sarah Lynn wouldn't bear any additional burdens from taking over my body. But only I knew that Sarah Lynn would have no future at all. She had just been forced into a soul swap, her soul was unstable to begin with, and Jason's torture made her soul leave my body frequently. Each time her soul left, it would be devoured by those dark energies. How could she not become insane over time? To reward Jason for his work, Linda discussed giving him a house before his engagement, but I refused. I told Linda that giving Jason a house might make them less obedient. Linda immediately agreed. I saw a fleeting shadow at the door, smiled, and pretended not to notice, continuing to chat with Linda. Sarah Lynn, I've already taken care of your property transfer. Once you and Emily switch bodies, I'll adopt that girl as my goddaughter, and she'll inherit everything when I'm gone. I leaned against Linda, trying to look weak.
Mom! I keep having nightmares and feel uneasy. Do you think the plan will work? If not, that Emily will get off too easy.
I chuckled inwardly, thinking the play was finally nearing its end. Linda caressed my head lovingly.
Don't say such unlucky things. Besides, even if it doesn't work, your body can still last a while. Then I'll find you a new girl with compatible birth dates. As for that Emily, she's already finished. Mom, you're so good to me. But my nightmares are so real, and I'm so scared.
As I spoke, I gently stroked her chest, inwardly pleased with myself. Don't be afraid, honey. I'll ask the master later if there's a way to fix it. I nodded obediently. Back in
My
room, I received a text from Linda. That evening, she entered the room with the doll that I had initially sold her. Soon after, Jason came to my bedside with a flattering smile.
baby, Emily is pretty much done for now. My mom said to hurry up with the soul swap, or something might go wrong.
Could it be that the person they claimed could swap souls was Jason's mom? But I couldn't sense any voodoo aura from her.
Is your mom reliable? Emily's like this because of the doll, so don't you believe in it? Besides, my mom has experience with the stuff.
Jason seemed a little nervous.
Has your mom swapped souls for other people before? No. She's just seen others do it.
His eyes darted around, revealing a hint of unease.
And you? Does it bother you that Emily has been reduced to this state by you?
As I spoke, my gaze swept over him, a mocking smile playing on my lips. Jason's eyes turned sentimental, as if imagining something.
Once we swap bodies, we'll get married right away. It wouldn't be right for my mom to keep working as a caretaker, you know? I know you're testing my sincerity, but I've already offered you Emily's life. What else don't you trust? Haha, that's funny. It's the first time I've seen someone use their fiancé's life to prove their loyalty.
I suppressed my disgust and, mimicking Jason, caressed his face, slowly moving downward until I touched his neck.
Jason, do you love me? I do, of course I do.
He stared directly at me, his eyes filled with anticipation.
If I ask you to give your soul to me, would you be willing?
I suddenly flipped over and straddled him. Jason seemed ignited by my passion, his cheeks flushing red.
I would.
Good. My hand slipped behind the pillow, retrieving a sharp knife. Jason half closed his eyes, seemingly waiting for that moment when I would kiss him. But in the next second, I yanked his hair and pulled hard.
Jason, you've never called me baby, just Emily.
I was still in Sarah Lynn's body, but my voice had returned to that of Emily.
You.
Jason's eyes widened in terror, a mix of fear and disbelief.
Why are you looking at me like that? We're about to get engaged. Aren't you having second thoughts?
I smiled wickedly, feeling a rush of satisfaction.
Emily!
Fear filled his face as he reached out to push me away, but then paused, his eyes darting to the iron cage on the floor. The original Emily was still there, her gaze vacant and drooling. Perhaps sensing Jason's stare, she suddenly lifted her head and met his eyes. She didn't react, her hair swaying gently, Sarah Lynn's signature gesture. Jason looked back at me, filled with unease.
I joked that even with a soul swap, I'd retain some habits. Remember, the buyer long show? You're Emily? You're the master who sold me the doll?
Jason's face shook with fear.
Yep! Don't! Mom, help! Ugh!
I struck swiftly, the fresh severed head in my hand swaying. In an instant, warm blood splattered across the bed. His eyes widened, as if he couldn't comprehend the world around him. After dealing with Jason, I stepped out of the room. Passing Linda's door, I heard faint sounds of her pained moans inside, but I ignored it and walked toward the living room, holding Jason's head. Grace was half closed-eyed on the sofa, watching TV. She smiled as I walked out, but when she saw the blood on me, her smile vanished, replaced by terror.
Sarah Lynn, what happened?
I didn't answer. Instead, I raised my hand and threw the bloody head into Grace's lap. Confused, she caught it, but when she realized what it was, a piercing scream echoed throughout the villa.
Aw! My son! My son! Who did this? Who did this?
She went insane, clutching the bloody head as she rushed toward me, her hair in disarray and eyes bloodshot. "Where's my son's body? Quick! Go find a young man for me, anyone will do. We can still save him. We can still save him." I shoved Grace to the ground, the bloody head rolling from her grasp. She tried to retrieve it, but I coldly spoke.
Who's going to save him? Your voodoo master behind you? Is that her?
I pulled a photo from my bag showing an old woman with graying hair and a loving gaze.
Don't you think she looks a lot like the Emily you swapped lives with?
I didn't pay attention to Grace's trembling as I continued.
My mom always said you and Jason are greedy and untrustworthy. At first, I didn't believe it until she performed a soul switch right in front of you, making you trust her and introduce her to Linda. If it weren't for my mom seeing through your scheme and supporting me behind Linda's back, I might have truly fallen into your trap.
Grace froze, looking at me with terror.
Who? Who are you?
I smiled.
You figured it out, haven't you?
Just then, Linda's door swung open. Ignoring the chaos in the living room, she walked over to me with a doll, a bright smile on her face. When Grace saw Linda, it was as if she had spotted a savior. "Linda!" "Sarah Lynn is acting strange. She might be possessed by something. This is beyond what my master can handle. You need to find your master quickly." Linda didn't even glance at Grace, instead calmly telling me,
Baby, someone is looking for you. Coming!
The wind picked up outside, branches swaying as a thunderclap rumbled. Inside the villa, it was as dark as ink, with no one in sight. I walked toward Grace, a cold smile creeping onto my lips.
Wasn't someone looking for me? Here I am.
My voice fell like a shadow, filling the air with a terrifying aura. This September, the police announced a gruesome case involving a wealthy family. A maid and her son attempted to seize the employer's wealth by imprisoning the employer and her daughter. During the captivity, they subjected the employer and her daughter to repeated abuse, leading to the daughter losing her cognitive abilities. This horrific crime was discovered by the maid's fiancé, who also suffered cruel imprisonment. Ultimately, the employer's daughter, driven to madness, broke free from her restraints and killed the maid and her son, later being found by neighbors who called the police. The employer's daughter has since been sent to a psychiatric hospital for treatment. The employer is grateful to the maid's fiancé for thinking of rescuing her in her time of need and has decided to adopt her as a goddaughter, ensuring she inherits all the family assets. When I read this news, I was seated on a plane to City H with Linda. She was awkwardly cutting her steak and looked at me reproachfully.
Baby, this left-handed woman is just not my style.
I smiled and comforted her. Mom, don't rush. We might find something even better. With that, I nestled into Linda's embrace, a sly glint in my eye. Mom, I'll never ignore your advice again. You've always said Jason was no good, but I didn't listen. If it hadn't been for you reaching out to Linda through Grace, once they got my real birth chart, no matter how skilled I was, I'd be in trouble. Linda didn't respond, gently stroking my hair with her stiff fingers. Just then, my phone vibrated. I opened the app to see a message. Master, can your doll help me kill my daughter-in-law? I chuckled, weighing the two new dolls I had with me, one missing a head, the other with a hole in its chest. Pleased with myself, I replied. Sure. Then, Linda and I exchanged smiles, both of us filled with uncontainable excitement and calculation. This plan was gradually taking shape, and everything seemed to be moving toward the outcome I envisioned. At that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of confidence. Jason and Grace's fates would be in my hands, and I had no intention of showing mercy. Mom, we need to make sure everything is set up, ready for the harvest. I said to Linda, my tone calm but unwaveringly firm. Of course, I've got everything planned. Everything is under my control. Linda's eyes sparkled with a strange light, as if she could foresee a bright future ahead. We were about to unveil a thrilling act.